Hey, how's it going there, folks? Welcome back here to the end of the weekend. Unfortunately, that is upon us here today. It's Sunday, but we got the beautiful day of Sunday to enjoy. August 4th, 2024. It's about 10:41 a.m. here, California time. It's going to be another hot one. It's going to be up around 105 degrees today or so, around my neck of the woods. 3.9 out here around the Philippines area, just south there. Seeing some aftershock activity following that 7-pointer. Or 6.8 a couple days ago. We'll take a look here at earthquake activity in just a little bit. We'll talk about the California activity and some movement up into the Intermountain West areas as well. Want to cover Tropical Storm Debby. This tropical system here is rapidly intensifying there just around the Florida area. You can see Florida getting quite a bit of rainfall, quite a bit of effects of this tropical storm. The area of circulation is roughly right about here. If you can see it in this infrared satellite imagery. Now, Tropical Storm Debby is expected to become a hurricane roughly about 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. Well, possibly even before then, but it's expected to make landfall right here at 8 a.m. Monday morning here along the panhandle of Florida here. Now, there is hurricane warnings up in effect in the red, tropical storm warnings in the blue here. Now, we have potential of seeing some very damaging rainfall accumulation amounts from this system. Not going to be a super powerful hurricane. In fact, some of the models here are forecasting. Let's go back here real quick and check that out. They're forecasting roughly around a Category 1. So it will reach, the hurricane status. Maybe, I doubt it's going to go up to 2. It doesn't have enough time to sit out there and, accumulate the energy needed to produce that strong of a hurricane. But it is, the majority of the models are forecasting it to be up on a low-grade Category 1 hurricane. So not necessarily the wind that's going to be the damaging aspect of things, but the rain accumulation out here over the next couple days. Look at this. Some of these rainfall amounts are incredibly catastrophically damaging here. We're talking about over a foot of rain being reported out here around South Carolina, all along the coastline up here, Georgia, maybe North Carolina getting involved in that as well. Of course, Florida is dealing with all the effects right now. They're expected to see some damaging rainfall potentials out here as well. That's the ECMWF model. The GFS model out here paints roughly about the same. HRRR model is the next 48 hours. Well, we got a little bit of time before we see some of those rainfall amounts come into accumulation. But even the HRRR model, which is the more accurate prediction in terms of weather forecasting, is painting a devastating scenario out here in terms of flooding potential. Now, I want to show you guys what the weather models here are forecasting for this area as we go to the southeast here. Here is the hurricane, or will be Hurricane Debby. In the next 24 hours, I feel, or before then, that is going to rapidly intensify. Look at that droppage of pressure right there, and then make its way over into the region, bringing with it a lot of rainfall, and it's just going to sit down there for a little bit and spin backwards back into land, and of course stir things up over the next, technically this coming week here. We got a huge rainfall event from it will be Tropical Storm Debby here after it weekends. And it does look like there's maybe some type of other tropical system here joining in on all the rainfall as we head towards next weekend to provide even further rain in this area. So the rainfall accumulation is right now the main damaging aspect of things out here. As we look at the rainfall totals here through, well, it's going to be to about this weekend here, August 11th. Look at these, impressive. I just showed you guys on the windy map here, but we're talking about 12, 14 inches of rain, over a foot of rain in a couple day time span out here. And who knows what's behind that, or as far as any other weather makers go. So damaging aspect of this is going to be the flooding and, a little bit of wind out there, 75, 80 mile per hour winds, with a low grade Category 1. Right now, The maximum sustained winds are 65 miles per hour, making it a tropical storm. It is moving north-northwest at about 13 miles per hour. Now, it's got a little bit of time span here to rapidly develop before landfall tomorrow, 8 a.m. So it is expected to increase into a hurricane quite rapidly. We'll watch the transformation throughout the day today. Got some flooding potential out there, as I mentioned, and storm surge. Let's go over here to the National Hurricane Center and check out the details from their map. Tropical Storm Debby. Heavy rainfall, that's the key wording out here, will likely result in considerable flooding impacts from the Florida Big Bend region through southeast Georgia and the coastal plain of the Carolinas through Friday. So we're talking about potentially historic heavy rainfall across these areas. Now here's the flash flooding potential. Big time out here across the South Carolina area. That's in the high category. Very rare to see the extreme category used out here in describing the flash flood risk. So this is the area that's supposed to receive 14, 15 inches of rainfall. Obviously, Florida and other areas that are impacted by Debby will continue to be in the risk category as well. Storm surge, there is some storm surge potential out here. Let me go check this out. Right now we have storm surge warnings up against the Panhandle, the western coast here of Texas, Tampa, northward area. Those are probably experiencing some activity right now. Storm surge watch over here across the Georgia and the South Carolina region, as that tropical system will eventually make its way back around that area. So big time potential out here. Don't want to mess around with this when it comes to the flooding potential. May not be a super huge hurricane, category 3, 4, 5, but it does have the effects that comes with any tropical storm out here. Up to 10 feet in peak storm surge here across this area of Florida, and a little bit lower, but still potentially active here across the South Carolina and the Georgia area. So, don't mess around with this. This is definitely a serious deal when it comes to the flooding potential, and the amount of rainfall that's going to fall on these areas is just going to be outrageous here. I would love to just have a fraction of that out here in Northern California. That would put the fires out and make everything green again. But there's a forecast here. This is a little crazy. Some of these, this is actually unreal. 20 inches of rain that's being forecasted here through the NOAA site. That is crazy. So the models I just showed you guys were underestimating or under forecasting the potential out here. Weather Prediction Center showing what looks like 20 inches of rainfall for the Savannah area and into portions of South Carolina. That is scary crazy. 1 to 5 day rainfall forecast here. Local amounts up to 30 inches. Oh my. That is wow. So something to watch here, folks. If you're down here in the southeast area, keep your local news station on, any local FM radio station as well. That way you can get notified on alerts out there, and of course be observant and visual, because that's some damaging rainfall. 30 inches. Wow. All right. So we'll keep an eye on this and report back on the process of Debby as it transforms into a hurricane. Right now it's tropical storm, 65 mile per hour sustained winds. Not going to be a hurricane for long, but the effects of it, they're going to be crazy when it comes to rainfall. Goodness. All right, jumping into space weather activity. Well, last night, they were calling a forecast for a G2 class storm. That never materialized. That missed us, but the effects of it were somewhat felt here just recently, as we've seen the KP index peak here almost to a 7. A G3 class storm came in for a very short time period, and that was mainly due to the BZ component pointing south, allowing a lot of this, even though it was just barely a glancing blow from the CME, some of this solar wind speed to amplify conditions up to a G3 class storm there. And that peaked up the auroras for a little bit, but I don't think they're going to persist. Again, the amount of the CME, that plasma cloud that was shot off here a couple days ago from a large solar flare, triggered a G2 class storm here from last night, and it's supposed to be tonight as well. But the brunt of it missed us, and we're just getting barely a glancing hit, and the BZ component was technically way south, which allowed any type of solar wind stream to amplify the auroras out here for a very short period. There's a G3 class storm there just recently, as you can see on the chart right here. So overall, coming into the night, I don't think we're going to see any elevated activity. This was just a very short period of some increasing activity there, and it wasn't even from the brunt of the CME that had been originally forecast to hit us. It missed us more than likely off to our north on the Earth-Sun plane. So we'll keep an eye on that for tonight. I don't think it's going to be elevated, as I mentioned here. That has passed us, and we weren't really forecasting anything further than that potential CME, which missed us. Flaring activity, we do have a couple different flares out here in the past 24 hours. Nothing of major value. Quite a few M flares, though, in the last couple days. There's a M flare overnight, small one. Looks like we're starting to dip down a little bit here into the C flare category, indicating that that active region out here on the western limb is no longer in view. Well, if it is, it's barely in view out here across the western limb. So that's going to tone things down in terms of the flare activity and the typical the background level of energy out here on the sun as far as the sunspots go. But we do have an active region out here on the eastern limb. Look at that, quite large. Let's go see what's going on here in the complexity map. That's going to be 3780, this region out here. I wouldn't doubt it if that's one of the sunspots from back in May that has just continued to evolve. Let me check something real quick. It doesn't show it on there, but there's the former sunspots. I think that was one of the old sunspots here that's come around the bend for like 3 times now, maybe even 4 times. Because when these sunspots are on the Earth-facing side of the sun, they get renamed, whether it's the same sunspot or not that has gone around the far side of the sun multiple times. It still gets renamed every time it comes back into the Earth-directed view. So it's hard to keep track of what's what, but I think that's one of the former sunspots that's come around for like 4 times now. Let's look at the magnetic complexity here. Broad area, and a couple of different areas in the center core of the sunspot that look complex. I think this is the one that produced all that X-flare and that CME activity back in May. I believe that's the same region. Correct me if I'm wrong, but what was that, 3766? I can't remember. It's gone around so many times now. And so yeah, we'll watch this active region here on the southeastern limb of the sun. And in the meanwhile, we do have a couple different regions facing the Earth that is showing some complexity. That's these dark colors here indicating magnetic strength. And when they're close like this, intermingling with each other, that's when we get the potential for some stronger flaring. So overall, this area right here, a couple sunspots we need to keep an eye on for some stronger flaring. 25% chance for X flare, C flare at 99% chance, M flare at 75% chance, proton event around 20% or so. And again, the auroras, I don't think we're going to see that continue into the night. This was just a little fluke, so to speak, in terms of it missing us, but also at the same time with the BZ component being south, anything that did potentially hit us was amplified for a very short period, but that has since gone down. All right, earthquake activity. See what's going on here in the, well, Etna, right? Mount Etna. Where is Mount Etna? That's one of those things here, Mount Etna. Let me show you the most recent cool image. Really neat. Let's pop this up here. This is from social media X, from Volcanic. Likes to post a lot of volcanic stuff there. Very valuable page there on the social platform of X. Beautiful site of Mount Etna. Quite eruptive there, spewing up volcanic gases, and beautiful flows of lava, but also explosions there at the summit area. Now, Mount Etna, right, is nothing new to volcanic activity. This volcano erupts as much as California has earthquake activity on any given day. That's why I don't cover it a lot. Look at this scene back in 2021 near the airport. This volcano erupts a couple times a year. So nothing new in terms of anything, oh my gosh, this is out of the normal. No, this happens a lot. So that's why I don't cover it a lot, because, well, it's happening it seems like it happens every couple months. But it has had some further explosive eruptions there in its history. Since the year 1600, at least 60 flank eruptions and countless summit eruptions have occurred. So there's a lot of activity that occurs out there across this volcano. But nothing of concern. These people get used to it. All right. Let's cover earthquake activity here. Getting a trail of earthquakes here across the northwestern corner of the Pacific Ring of Fire. That sounds a little bit more scarier, right? A lot of people fearmonger the plate tectonics out here. The Pacific Ring of Fire is about ready to move. Not really. It's just the Pacific Plate, the North American and the the Pacific Plate, North American, and the Eurasia Plate right here. You got North American is kind of this little area in here, this little V shape. That's the North American side. Even though it's, way over there, it's still a portion of it in the brown. This is a major subduction zone area, and it's called the Pacific Ring of Fire, but I don't really use that term. It's like saying, Yellowstone supervolcano seen a 1.5 today. It's the wording, right? Yellowstone National Park, it's a supervolcano, but the wording is key, right? So the Pacific Ring of Fire, I like to call the northwestern corner of the Pacific Plate subduction zone here, called the Kuro-Kamchatka and the Japan Trench, is seeing a little bit of earthquake activity out here. Nothing big, quite a few fours out here in the last 24 hours. But this area, I keep focusing on this area because it's been a long time here, historically, since we've seen any major release of built-up strain. And it doesn't take, I keep saying it doesn't take hundreds of years for strain to build up here. Similar to the Cascadia subduction zone here off the coast of the Pacific Northwest. The setup here is a lot different. You don't have all the arrows pointing here in this direction. All the arrows are pointing in this direction here, indicating that's where a lot of the strain's built up. Average slip rate here, strain, is around 83 mm per year, if not higher in certain regions. So you got the Pacific Plate here in the yellow moving off to the northwest. North American Plate here is colliding with the Pacific Plate in this area. Two arrows, right? That's a subduction zone. And you got the backing up here of all that strain from the Eurasia Plate moving off to the southeast, moving towards this area. So, for a major subduction zone area to not show any major release here in quite a while underneath major strain all the time is a little concerning. So right now, a couple fours out here, but I believe this area has enough strain to produce a large, very large damaging earthquake, well above a 7. So we continue to keep an eye on that. There's somewhat elevated activity out here in the last 24 hours. The rest of the Pacific Plate, wow, goodness, pretty quiet out here today. Got a couple earthquakes down in the Philippines and the Indonesia Islands area, but back over here, nothing showing up according to the USGS. And aside from some threes down there, looks like quite active across New Zealand. Nothing big. A couple threes, maybe even a little 4.4s up here along the Kermadec Trench. This area is pretty quiet right now. So watch these areas of quiet zones. There's the aftershock activity here across the Philippines. And the Mediterranean area, Middle East regions, all look normal. 2s and 3s out there, nothing major going on. Of course, eruption of Mount Etna, which is pretty common. Getting a little bit of activity out in the southern mid-Atlantic range out here, rift boundary. This is pretty much where all the excitement begins. 5.5 Central Mid-Atlantic Ridge from last night. So nothing new going on, but this is separation. This is actually a strike slip zone here. Fracture zone. Romanchi? Is that right? Hopefully. So let's check out California. Anything major going on out here? There's that little area of swarming from yesterday, last couple days, where they've seen that 3.4. Nothing new in this area. It looks like maybe a handful of smaller quakes, right? So if you want to look at a total tally, we got, over 50 earthquakes here in this area since that 3.4 began there 2 days ago. Not a big swarm, but it's showing consistency in terms of the earthquake multitudes. Over here around the Borrego Springs, got a 2.4 coming in away from this area. A little bit of activity further south here around the border area. Let me see what we got there in the Gulf of California. Really nothing major going on there across this area, but somewhat increasing in terms of smaller counts and smaller magnitudes of earthquakes out here. 2.5 map and above shows a 3.1 off the coast here of Malibu. Northern California, pretty quiet. Look at the bay, absolutely quiet. Northern California, Cascadia subduction zone, 2.1, 16 miles deep for that earthquake. Not a big deal. Mount Hood, beautiful, beautiful volcano up there. I love looking at that volcano up in Oregon. Quite visible there from Portland as well. 0.8, 0.4, 1.3. Couple smaller earthquakes here on the south side of the volcano. So let's see what's going on there at that area. See, now I'm going to be covering earthquake activity on any volcano that hasn't showed, eruption activity in quite a while. That is newsworthy. Nothing going on for the Cascadia subduction zone in terms of tremor, but we've seen a lot there recently, so that could stir up the volcanoes there across the Cascades, right? Makes sense. It's a subduction zone. That's how those volcanoes are formed. Volcano seismicity, Mount Hood. There's a couple of those smaller quakes south side of Mount Hood. Let's see if these seismograph stations are working. Wow, that one's obviously not. And this one is, not working either. That's what is going on here. Let me check this one. Lamberson Butte looks a little bit better. Here's a couple of those smaller quakes. See that right there? 1, 2, 3, 4 maybe. Those are very small earthquakes. Very small. But they still showed up here across the area at the seismograph station. Since then, really nothing going on. This activity, I'm not for sure what it is. It doesn't look like anything of value. But a couple smaller earthquakes there. On occasion, we do see this. In fact, last year we had a little bit of swarming out here across this volcano, if I remember right. Mount Rainier sees a little bit of swarming. Mount St. Helens gets, swarming on occasion as well. But right now, there's no concern for any type of eruption activity anytime soon with any of these volcanoes. We would know about it. Into the Idaho area, got a 3.0 near Smiths Ferry, Idaho, just about 3 o'clock in the morning here, my time. Some small activity scattered out and about here. Yellowstone National Park, nothing going on here. Checking out the thumbnails here of this area of Yellowstone National Park. Shows not a whole lot of earthquake activity. I do see the 3-pointer and a couple other smaller quakes there in Idaho from this morning. That's going to be this activity right here. That's not localized activity. This is Yellowstone National Park, the general area, the Yellowstone caldera in the black outline here, Lake Yellowstone in the blue, and one little earthquake. I'm sure you guys can see it right here. well-defined local seismic event. Very small earthquake, though. That's probably maybe a 1-pointer, maybe a 1.2, somewhere around there. I'm pretty good at guessing these magnitudes here, but nothing showing up here on the USGS map as far as that earthquake activity goes. But I'm sure they'll get to it Monday. But it's not that big of a deal. It's not swarming. Nothing major is going on there across Yellowstone. Looks about the same out here across the Texas area. Oil fields from yesterday. Really not a whole lot new today. But we'll see what happens. South America area, handful of deeper quakes. A lot of adjustment going on down here across the South America area, the Peru-Chile Trench. Of course, that's where we've seen some larger scale activity, but there's a lot of broader migration going on out here away from the area. Deeper quakes, shallower adjustment, deeper. That's a sign that this area right here is definitely going through a lot of pressurization across this area. So we could still see some further large-scale movement in general across the Peru-Chile Trench. That's another major subduction zone area that can produce large earthquakes. In fact, the largest 9.5 earthquake was recorded out here along the Peru-Chile Trench, the southern end. And right now, that looks pretty quiet. Only a couple smaller quakes there, so we'll keep our eyes open. Eyes and ears open, something like that. Seismograph stations out here. One little earthquake on the Barrett station there in Southern California. Aside from that, things are pretty quiet on the seismos. We'll continue to keep an eye there on soon-to-be Hurricane Debby, and we'll track the forecast here. Keep an eye on the rainfall totals going on across that area because this could be a historic event in terms of rainfall accumulation. Let's check out the current weather radar out here. Of course, Florida getting a lot of activity right now as well. A lot of rainfall, some thunderstorm convection activity north here of the area of circulation. You can pretty much see where that area of circulation is right about in here. That will rapidly intensify. It's got all this warm Gulf moisture to pull inland here and to amplify further convection here within that center core to become a hurricane for a short period. And again, we'll continue to keep an eye on this area as things progress and develop. We'll catch you guys back out here. I wish we had just a little bit of this overhead. I love a good thunderstorm. I'm not even joking. We'll catch you guys back out here a little bit later on this evening, folks. Sunday night update. Take care.